Hello, everybody. This is Brad Bolenball of Apostle Games coming to you live from beautiful North Carolina of the United States of America. With Christmas just around the bend, we've been hard at work on new features on Age of Tribulation. So come on in and let's check it out. Alright guys, so here we are in the weapon menu system here, and basically just what I want to go over is just the different weapon types and the innate status effects that go along with these weapons. So the first thing I want to do is just show you guys that there are three different types of physical weapons. So I'm going to come over here to the character menu and show you underneath this menu here you see damage resistance. On the left side you have crushing, piercing, and slashing. These three damage types are all physical based attacks. Over on the right side here are spiritual, psychological, and emotional. These are all metaphysical damage types. And today I want to focus on physical damage types. The weapons that I'm going to be showing you are going to be either crushing, piercing, or slashing. So let's go back here to the weapons menu. And what I've done is in the icons, the background color reflects the type of damage that it does. So in this case, yellow is crushing, red is piercing, and green is slashing. The weapon that you start out with are fists. Everybody starts with a pair of fists, and fists are the crushing damage type. Now they don't have an innate status effect. So the first weapon I want to come to is the hand club, which is a single-handed weapon. It's a crushing weapon, and it has the status effect of concussion. So you get a 10% chance anytime you attack an enemy with this, a 10% chance to cause a concussion for 3 turns, which is a negative 20% of their hit rate and block. If you come over here to the spiked club, it's just like the hand club, except for it has spikes. So instead of doing a concussion, it does a puncture status effect, which means it has a 15% chance for 3 turns to take 1 life point away from your opponent. They're essentially bleeding for 3 turns and causes damage over time. Over here we have the light hammer, and basically the light hammer, the mace, the flange, the flail, all of these weapons are kind of similar in function. What sets them apart is they do concussive damage, but they also have armor piercing, which means it reduces a certain part of the opponent's protection percentage. When you come down here though to spiked flails and the Morning Star, these are crushing weapons, but they do puncture instead of concussion, but still cause a small amount of armor piercing. The Warhammer is very similar in function to the light hammer, but it does have slightly different effects. Now, if you're wanting to play like a mage style character or a priest style character who uses a lot of metaphysical gifts, you would want the walking staff, which gives an increase to your potency, so it makes your metaphysical gifts more powerful. But if you want to use something that is more like a fighting style weapon, that's like a walking staff, you'd want the bow staff here. The bow staff is a 2-handed weapon that also causes concussion, but it also has a counter attack ability attached to it, which basically means whenever a enemy attacks you and you manage to dodge it, you have a 25% chance to hit them in return, which also allows you to cause the status effect that's attached to that weapon. And then the last crushing weapon of this type is called the Great Maul. The Great Maul has a 75% armor piercing, so it basically just walks right through armor, but it is 2-handed, and it's not very accurate. So yeah. The next kind of weapons I want to go over are the dual wielding weapons. Dual wielding weapons basically allow you to make 2 attacks per turn. You have a weapon in each one of your hands, and they come in piercing, slashing, and crushing damage types. The first weapons are the butter knives, which don't have an innate status effect. These are like your entry level weapons to dual wielding. But once you graduate up from those, you can start using dirks, which are piercing dual wield, and you are able to cause a 15% puncture chance per attack. So whenever you're using dual wielding weapons, each attack is calculated individually. So you can miss with one strike, but hit with the other strike. And also the status effects are calculated individually as well. So even though you only have a 15% chance of causing a puncture, you get to do that twice every single round. So there's a pretty good chance, there's a decent chance you're going to be able to cause whatever status effect is tied to that weapon type. Daggers here are a different flavor of dirks, and Cinctas are kind of like dirks and daggers, but they cause lacerations instead. The status effect of laceration causes a negative 20% to your opponent's destruction, potency, and authority. Hand or fist weapons, which are also dual wield, but they're wielded with the hand instead of holding onto a weapon, and that's the brass knuckle, which causes concussions and is a crushing weapon. Then down here, right below it, you also have the crushing dual wield spiked knuckles, which are similar to brass knuckles, but they cause punctures instead. Then you have over here the punch knives, which goes back to piercing dual wield. And they are kind of like dirks, but are definitely have some sort of differences in there as well. And then the iron claws, which are similar to the brass spiked knuckles and punch knives, they are handheld weapons, but they're slashing and cause lacerations instead. So let's go down here to the pitchfork, which is a two-handed weapon, which means you cannot hold a shield in your other hand. So that's one of the penalties of holding a two-handed weapon. However, pretty much all two-handed weapons do come with an innate blocking. So it's kind of like holding a shield, but not quite as effective as a shield. Over here you have the one-handed spear weapon, which causes punctures. And it has a pretty good critical rate and critical damage. Over here you have the glaive and the halberd, which are both two-handed weapons, but the difference is the halberd actually causes armor piercing, where the glaive does not. But the glaive has counterattacking, whereas the halberd does not. But they do both do piercing damage. However, the halberd does lacerations, whereas the glaive will cause punctures. Okay, coming down here, the farmhand starts out with the handheld sickle, which is a one-handed attack once again, and causes lacerations, and it's a slashing style weapon. It's not the best necessarily, but it'll get you by. It's a lot better than fists. And then you go into the swords. Swords all have an innate blocking, and they are the only one-handed weapons in the game that do have innate blocking, which means you can hold a sword in your right hand and gain a blocking bonus, but then hold a shield in your offhand. So basically, if you're building a blocking style character, you definitely want to use a sword and board, as they call it. The short sword is a little bit unique, though, to the other swords in that it does have a counterattack attached to it. In fact, it's the only weapon that has, or the only single-handed weapon that has a counterattack ability attached to it. The longsword has the highest blocking percentage by far, and the broadsword is kind of like in between a short sword and longsword, except for it doesn't have the counterattacking attached to it. And then the great sword is basically just a two-handed sword that does a ton of damage. It is a good weapon, though. The next style of weapon are the axes. Axes are good at causing critical damage. They have critical damage bonuses and critical rate bonuses attached to them. And axes are always slashing weapons, and they always cause a status effect of laceration. The hand axe is the one-handed version of that. It's pretty quick compared to the battle axe. The battle axe is also one-handed, but it does more damage. than the hand axe, and then the great axe is the two-handed variant, which causes tons more damage and has innate armor-piercing abilities with it. And then the scythe is a two-handed farming weapon that just does a ridiculous amount of damage, but is incredibly slow and is very inaccurate. But if you land your hit, you're probably going to cut somebody in half. So the last weapons are your ranged weapons. They are always piercing, and they're always two-handed. Bows, long bows, and recurve bows are all similar in the fact that they use your character's finesse. The higher the finesse rating of your character, the more damage you're going to do with a bow. But they don't have any kind of armor piercing. The armor piercing bows are the crossbows and the arbalist. Those use destruction and have innate armor piercing, meaning they're not finesse style weapons. So using a crossbow or an arbalist is a good, works very well with being a highly armored character, someone who's not very mobile. So the last thing I want to talk about before ending this developer log on the weapons is that all of these weapons that you're seeing here in this list are all base weapon types. There are going to be 4 different quality types for each one of these weapons. Just like I've done with the armor, where there's the common version, the fine grade, and then the superior grade, and then lastly the master grade. Each weapon is going to be graded along that same scale. So like, as you kind of see, like over here, the spiked flail, it kind of looks like an older, not very high quality one. Well, you know, like really with all of these, there are going to be better versions of these that you can buy. Now, that's not going to change the status effects on them. The status effects are a static innate ability that don't change with the quality. And then all these base like statistics, or the armor piercing, things of that nature will not change. They'll just essentially have better stats compared to what their lesser grade variant has. So yeah, so that is it with devlog number 15, the weapons overhaul developer log. Next month in January, we are going to be going over the new quest log that I'm currently working on. And once we have the quest log ready to go, along with the weapons, really all I have left to do is create the rest of the villages, a couple different areas, create some more NPCs, and create some quests. And the demo is going to be ready for you guys to start playing and actually get your hands on a copy of this thing. I know you've been waiting for, gosh, we're 2.5 years into development now. And I'll tell you what, if anyone wants this demo to be released, it's definitely us. So, but everything is looking good. I expect the demo to be released sometime between the months of March and May. I can't imagine it being June, but you know, if something were to happen, possibly. But we're definitely looking good to meet our deadline on that. And I'm sorry I've had to push it back a few times last year, but it was critical to do that. Unfortunately, because I really want to put out an excellent, superior quality product. So, all right, guys. Well, that'll be it for devlog number 15. And for December, I wish you all a Merry Christmas. And God bless. Brad out.
Audio Jungle.